Hey, good morning to everybody. Good morning from Daryl here on a wet, humid, tropical morning here in Connecticut on the East Coast. I just got back from a walk around town. I'm a little out of breath, but stick with me. I got a few ideas here. A lot of my videos recently have been, some people might label it Trump bashing. I talk a lot about negative and positive. What you put out is what you get back. And so I wanted to do a positive video here. Stick with me. A lot of times the positive videos don't get as much views, but I got an idea here. How about a wish list? A wish list for the next president. Some good ideas. I think after 3.5 years of Donald Trump, we can come up with some good ideas of what's gone wrong and what we'd like to see in the future. Okay. A few generalities that I think we can all agree on. Lobbyists. Lobbyists are a huge problem. We need to curtail the lobbyist system. Lawmakers are getting money from corporations, from people with a lot of money are the people that are getting the attention, that are getting the laws passed, and the common man is not being taken into consideration. Our vote doesn't mean anything these days. That needs to stop. The problem is there's so many loopholes with PACs, super PACs, and the way they can hide this money and whatnot. But this is a problem. Something else I'd like to talk about, the news. Getting back to what real news and journalism is. News has become entertainment. Entertainment has become news. This is a problem. This is a big problem because I think most Americans have no idea. It's divided the country in a lot of ways, and it's made figuring out what the actual truth is that much harder. I think if a program or a station is going to be called news or reporting or journalism, then it needs to stick to some regulations where it's facts. It's not opinions. It's not bias. Getting back to real, straightforward journalism. Otherwise, it's entertainment. It's opinionated entertainment, and it should be labeled as such. Just some ideas. Okay, to the president. Off the top of my head, the president should be required to show his taxes, should be required to show any arrests, his employment history, his medical history. Why not? I think we need to get back to the days. I think the founding fathers' idea, in my opinion, was to have an average, good, honest, working man to take his turn in the government. That's my reading of it. And we get jobs. When we apply, when we get jobs, what do we have to do? We have to give our history. How about drug tests? Drug tests for legislators, for congressmen, for senators, and for the president. We have to take drug tests. Why shouldn't they? We've elevated the presidency, especially the Republicans and Trump supporters, have elevated the presidency to a level of a monarchy, of a dictator. And it's still just pushing ever more in that direction. That whatever the president says goes. He is the rule maker, the end-all, be-all. When it comes to, whatever his say is, like with schools, all schools must open or else, and he dangles the carrot. That's got to stop. I think we need to take some power away from the presidency. The power needs to be diffused more amongst the states, towns, the Senate. Power needs to be taken away. I wouldn't even mind lie detector tests for the president. So I know lie detector tests aren't 100% accurate, but a lot of times we have to take them. There's jobs we have to take, especially if you're dealing with the security of the country. I know they're not 100% accurate, but I don't see why. I think it could be used in certain occasions where if somebody want to, in an attempt to prove their innocence, they could opt for a lie detector test, and that wouldn't prove 100%, but it would go a long way in people believing what they said. Because as we know now, Trump, nobody believes a word that comes out of this man's mouth. All right. I've thought of this for a long time, that if somebody, like if the president is going to send men, women to war, to die, to give their lives for their country, they need to know the weight, the personal toll and weight that that decision does take on families. In other words, I really think they should have a military history. They should have served in the military. Now, this is tricky because I thought this through a little more, and we really don't. I don't think we want somebody that has a whole career in the military history, like a general, then, because we might be crossing a line. We wouldn't want war hawk as president either. So that's a fine line to walk. All right. Censorship. The president should have no right of censorship whatsoever. Those powers should be taken from him. These executive privileges and all that for censorship. The president, one man, should not be able to determine what Americans can see, hear, or read in any way, shape, or form. That should be a vote. There's no way one man should be able to hide information. Okay, for reporting. I don't think a president should be able to hide from reporters. They should have to give conferences, news updates, town hall meetings where they just sit down with people, normal, regular people, and give them answers on a weekly basis. We have to remember they are our employee. Like I said, I feel like we've elevated the president to this god almost. It really seems like a lot of people these days worship money and billionaires, and they've elevated Trump to the level of a god, of somebody that they will believe and do anything he says, and that is not good for anybody, for the country, for people, for anybody. Okay, running for the presidency. These days, you have to be a billionaire. You have to be very wealthy to become president. That should not be. I mean, again, these are ideas off the top of my head, but I think they're valid. I mean, it would take a lot of working through, but I think support. If a man had, a good man had this, or woman, I'm sorry, or woman had this a large amount of support, we'd have to make a level of votes. Then it wouldn't, say he only had $50,000 in his bank account or $20,000. That man should still be able to become president. We could be bypassing people that would make a fantastic president just because they're not filthy rich billionaires, because they haven't inherited money for generations. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by allowing these billionaires that have just been born into money to rule our country. Again, I just think these are leading us in the wrong direction, leading us in the direction of a monarchy, of a dictatorship, authoritarianism. All right. Well, off the top of my head, those are just a few ideas. I'd love to hear some more from you guys. Some of the ones I believe strongly in is the censorship. Oh yeah, and something else I'd like to bring up too. The businessman. We did this, what I call the businessman experiment with Donald Trump, right? But see, I think it's obvious at this point that yes, he's a businessman, but he is sorely lacking in any kind of education or experience with healthcare, with education, with the environment. Donald Trump has absolutely no knowledge, education, or care for the environment, for education, and for healthcare. I think, which is blatantly obvious with the pandemic. And I keep reading articles where the Trump administration is supposedly, under the guise of this pandemic, is rolling back all sorts of environmental regulations, just so corporations could get wealthy under, like I said, under the guise of this pandemic. And there's not a lot of attention being paid to this until people start dying of brain damage or whatever from mercury poisoning and whatnot. So we need a well-rounded president. I think this businessman experiment showed some problems with the idea. We need a more well-rounded person to lead this country. Just some ideas. I wanted to do a positive video. Let me know what you guys think. You guys have a good Friday.